What is the Weizmann-Feisal Agreement? And what has this got to do with the Bible, the Quran? It's about the politics surrounding the Bible and the Quran throughout the ages. The support of Christianity moves away from the Bible, despite the fact that it's accurate throughout the ages, transmitted perfectly. It's a matter for the politics of the age to go along with what the Bible teaches, which it hardly ever does. And the Quran, and the Jews, and God's chosen people. And what the Quran allows for the Jews to be persecuted by all these political agreements. 1918, meeting in London, December. Weizmann and Feisal continued to try to find some common ground between Zionist and Arab positions. This Weizmann-Feisal agreement, as it came to be known, was completed on January 3, 1919. Article 4 declared that all necessary measures should be taken to encourage and stimulate immigration of Jews into Palestine on a large scale, and as quickly as possible to settle Jewish immigrants upon the land through closer settlement and intensive cultivation of the soil. Centuries of persecuting of the Jews. Weizmann and Feisal come together. Okay, let's get this happening. Like, wow. Taking such measures, the agreement went on, the Arab peasant and tenant farmers shall be protected in their rights and shall be assisted in forwarding their economic development. Weizmann and Feisal agreed that the boundary between Arab state and Palestine would be determined by a commission agreed upon by them both. In Palestine, the Muslim holy places would be under Muslim control. No law should be made to interfere in any way with the free exercise of religion, which means to persecute the Jews. In addition, the Zionist organization was using its best efforts to assist the Arab state in providing the means for developing the natural resources and economic possibilities thereof. Did that happen? Nope. It was reported by Weizmann that the Zionist organization did not want an autonomous Jewish government, but merely to establish in Palestine under a mandatory power an administration not necessarily Jewish, which would render it possible to send into Palestine 70,000 to 80,000 Jews annually. The organization would require to have permission at the same time to build Jewish schools where Hebrew would be taught, to develop institutions of every kind. Thus it would be built up gradually a nationality. How did the Arab delegation at Paris react to these submissions? 3 weeks earlier, on February 6th, the head of the delegation, the Emir Feisal himself, has already told the Supreme Council that because of Palestine's universal character, he accepted that it should be left on one side for the consideration of all countries interested. On March 1, he expressed himself clearly and firmly in favor of the Zionist position. In a long letter to one of the American Zionist leaders, Felix Frankfurter, we Arabs, Feisal wrote, especially the educated among us, look with deepest sympathy on the Zionist movement. Feisal's letter continued. Our deputation here in Paris is fully acquainted with the proposals submitted yesterday by the Zionist organization to the peace conference, and we regard them as moderate and proper. Our best, insofar as we are concerned, to help them through. We will wish the Jews a most hearty welcome home. Remember, in the Quran, you can sound like and put on a friendly face for whatever advantage. You can be two-faced. That's part of being a Muslim. With the chiefs of your movement, especially with Dr. Weizmann, we have had and continue to have the closest relations. He has been a great helper of our cause, and I hope the Arabs may soon be in a position to make the Jews some return for their kindness. We are working together for a reformed and revived Near East, and our two movements complete one another. The Jewish movement is national and not imperialist. Our movement is national and not imperialist, and there is room for Syria for us both, in Syria for both. Indeed, I think that neither can be a real success without the other. A lot of talk. Sounds great. Until it comes time to attack. Neither Feisal's letter to Frankfurter nor the earlier agreement between Weizmann and Feisal could provide a guarantee of future Jewish-Arab amity. See, oh yeah, put the words on the paper. Indeed, in a handwritten note, which he added to the agreement itself, Feisal had stressed that he would only carry out what is written in this agreement on condition that the Arabs obtain their independence in Syria. By July 1920, the French had deposed Feisal from the throne of Syria. The French were in control at this time. 2 years later, however, the British support, Feisal did become king of an Arab state, Iraq, which gained complete independence in 1932. See? Two-faced. When you get in charge, watch what happens. National idea of a commanding character. For the 30 years beginning in 1918, the status of the Jews already in Palestine and the future of those who wished to go there was dependent upon British policy. Although a Jewish national home had come into existence in 1918, or was at least promised, the Jews themselves had to rely on British goodwill and British-controlled legislation to secure or strengthen their legal and physical position there. There was certainly no unanimity of pro-Zionist feeling among the British policymakers during 1919 and 1920. Sometimes the attitude was much more than of actual hostility. On July 1919, the Syrian General Congress, meeting in Damascus, challenged Emir Feisal's acceptance of Zionism and, in a strongly worded memorandum, demanded the union of Palestine with Syria and an immediate end to all Jewish immigration. There you go. Months later, complete reversal. The British government, however, felt itself firmly committed to pro-Zionist policy. June 19th, General Clayton had telegraphed to the Foreign Office from Cairo for approval of a Palestinian ordinance to reopen land purchase under official control. Balfour replied that land purchase could indeed be continued, provided that, as far as possible, preferential treatment is given to Zionist interests. The anti-Zionist group in Britain spanned both political parties. On August 1919, an American Commission of Inquiry, known as King Crane Commission, criticized Zionist ambitions and recommended what is called serious modifications of the extreme Zionist program for Palestine of unlimited immigration for Jews, making Palestine distinctly a Jewish state. During 1919, anti-Semitism became more widespread and was not confined to Russians or Eastern Europeans. October 16th, a public event took place in Munich, beer cellar, a speech by none other than Adolf Hitler, then age 30. His denunciations of the Jews held his audience spellbound for half an hour. Evidence of the Jewish role in Bolshevik Russia created, through 1919 and 1920, a hostile attitude towards the Jews as well. By the end of 1919, more than 100,000 Jews had been murdered in the Ukraine and Poland. So much for these and the Jewish state. Writing in the Illustrated Sunday Herald on February 8, 1920, another non-Jew, the British Secretary of State of War, Winston Churchill, encapsulated the main contemporary attitudes towards both Zionism and the Jews. Some people like Jews and some do not, he wrote, but no thoughtful man can doubt the fact that they are beyond all doubt the most formidable and the most remarkable race which has ever appeared in the world. Churchill then appealed to world Jewry to abandon Bolshevism and to turn instead to Zionism. Zionism, Churchill believed, offered to the Jews a national idea of a commanding character. Palestine would provide the Jewish race all over the world with, as he put it, a home and a center of national life. The Prime Minister remained a staunch supporter for the Jewish people. The year 1920 was a fateful one for the Jews, for it saw not only Lord George's determination to accept the Palestine Mandate for Britain, but also in Germany the evolution of Adolf Hitler's crude anti-Semitic views from the obscurity of individual prejudice to the publicity of the popular mob. In Palestine, Hajj Amin el-Hassani, a member of one of the leading Arab families, had been sentenced to 10 years in prison for incitement to violence, fled across Jordan. Only 6 months later, on May 8, 1921, was appointed Mufti of Jerusalem and later president of the newly created Supreme Muslim Council. This made him effective head of the Muslim community in Palestine. Henceforth, he was to be a leading and instigator of a sequence of protests, of riots, and after 1936 of murder against Jews, against British soldiers and civilians, and against several hundred moderate Arabs who opposed his extreme activities. In pursuance of his aim to see a Jewish national home established in Palestine, Lord George entrusted Winston Churchill, who became colonial secretary in January 1920, to supervise the details of the emergence of the formal League of Nations mandate. Here's how it goes. Feisal agrees to abandon all claims of his father to Palestine. Almost the first letter which Churchill received in his new cabinet post was one from T.E. Lawrence, who, January 17, 1921, reported on his discussions with the Emir Feisal, who, had Lawrence wrote, agreed to abandon all claims to his father to Palestine. In return, Feisal wanted both Mesopotamia and Transjordan to become Arab states. A lot of politics here. This was accomplished within 2 years when Feisal himself became ruler of Mesopotamia and his brother Abdulah ruler of Transjordan. Mesopotamia, as Iraq, became independent in 1932, Transjordan in 1946. As part of Britain's policy towards Transjordan, all the Jewish national home provisions of the Palestine Mandate were specifically excluded from the whole of Transjordan. Politics, politics. Jews are not going to get a fair shake. Winston Churchill makes his case for a Jewish national home in Palestine. Churchill visited Palestine March 1921, where he was greeted by a petition from the Haifa Congress of Palestinian Arabs, March 14, 1921. It read, "We refuse the Jewish immigration to Palestine. We energetically protest against the Balfour Declaration to the effect that our country should be made the Jewish national home." In his reply, Churchill stated that the case for the Zionists is in a powerful manner. It is manifestly right, he told the Palestinian Arabs on March 28, that the Jews who are scattered all over the world should have a national center and a national home where some of them may be reunited. And where else could that be but in the land of Palestine, with which for more than 3,000 years, they have been intimately and profoundly associated. We think it would be good for the world, good for the Jews, and good for the British Empire. The Arab protest continued, and the violence that followed Churchill's visit was severe. Arab violence in Jaffa on May 1 led to the British High Commissioner in Palestine, Sir Herbert Samuel, ordering an immediate temporary suspension of Jewish immigration. 10 days later, the senior naval officer in the Eastern Mediterranean, Captain Seymour, sent to the Admiralty his report on the riots, in which he wrote, "Further immigration of foreign Jews into Palestine has been prohibited as a temporary measure, and this has been given satisfaction to the Arabs." Devil is working overtime. The suspension of immigration made on the authority of Sir Herbert Samuel did not entirely impress the Colonial Office, and a telegram was drafted for Churchill by one of his senior advisors, Major Young, which was dispatched to Samuel on 1921 of May. "The present agitation," the telegram read, "is doubtless engineered in the hope of frightening us out of our Zionist policy. We must firmly maintain law and order and make concessions on their merits and not under duress." Although the total prohibition of Jewish immigration, which the Arabs continued to demand, was never acceptable to Churchill, the idea of some limit to Jewish immigration was discussed between Samuel and the Colonial Office, and it was decided to set up a limit based on what was described by Samuel as the economic absorptive capacity of Palestine. This idea of some limit took rapid shape, and within 2 years, it had become government policy, to the dismay of the Zionist leaders, who saw it as an erosion of what they believed was the principle of freedom of immigration implied in the national home phraseology of the Balfour Doctrine. They get a solution, and they squeeze it to nothing. For good or ill, the future of Zionism was not linked to British policy and British prejudice, but it was still up to the Zionists to take the initiative if their numbers were to grow and the efforts to flourish. On June 4th, Arthur Rupin wrote in his diary, "It is absolutely clear to me that Zionism will perish altogether if we do not soon make a start developing Palestine agriculturally." The Palestine Mandate secured. 1921 to 19